All right, so bear with me. I'm just now getting caffeinated. As you can imagine, last night was a bit of a slog, and didn't walk into the house until, close to when the sun was coming up, and a lot to unpack after whatever that ended up being in East Hartford last night. Florida Atlantic Voice, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we are presented by Robes Law Group, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com. Always there for the community. Office, Delray Beach. Robes Law Group, proud presenting sponsor of the Florida Atlantic Voice. I've been trying to figure out how to balance this because this is never going to be a podcast, nor am I ever going to put myself in a position where I'm just butchering, skewering, disrespecting, hot taking. Like, one, with what I do with Florida Atlantic, it doesn't do me any good. That would be professionally stupid. But also I don't have any desire to do that, not to 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, really good men and women within that program that do unbelievable work and shape lives. Okay, so if what I'm gonna say, the reason I preface it like this, because I know that there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of, I guess, embarrassment. I think that's appropriate after what happened last night at UConn, and I don't think any more so than right now in that Schmidt family complex with what with what that team is feeling. But because there are emotions now, and there are feelings now that are combustible. If you think this is going to be your go-to place for fist pounding and teeth gnashing and calling out and demanding change and all of those different things, I would just turn off the podcast. Okay, like I just want to get out in front of that. Like, there are other avenues to go if you want to do that. Like, when you listen to me on ESPN Radio, hosting on ESPN Radio, I'll do that there, but I'm not going to do that here. Okay, but what we are going to do is we are going to face reality, and what reality tells us, and I think common sense tells us, is that this FAU team, unless one side of the ball isn't nearly perfect, this is a team that is struggling in a pretty significant way. I think that is about the most accurate way that I could put it. This is an FAU football team that is struggling, and I'll go ahead and use the C word now. This, to me, this season is at a bit of a crossroads a month in. 48-14, the final against UConn, and I'm still trying to figure out how things transpired the way that they did. It was just really not competitive. And UConn, I get that there's this reputation of UConn just being a product of a bygone era of college football. They're just sort of there. They just exist. They're independent. They year after year get their body slammed into a wall over their proverbial football body slammed into a wall over and over and over again. Sneakily, Jim Mora Jr. has turned this thing into a little bit of a revelation. And what stands out to me is just how physically superior UConn was to FAU. Not from a speed standpoint, but from a physical perspective of going in and banging and welcoming contact and pushing and shoving bodies around, bulldozers, people movers. That was UConn. Like, the way UConn played in the run game, the way that they were just extracting FAU bodies from one place to another, like, that is what FAU needs to strive to do on the offensive side, even more so than Army. I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but facing UConn's rushing attack was significantly um, more jarring and more helpless feeling than Army. How insane is that? And so that is where I totally get if you feel like you're in a daze this morning. I do as well. That was ugly. And I think Tom Herman in the postgame show with us on the Florida Atlantic Sports Network, he said this is the first time since Clemson of last year where it just felt like both sides of the ball we were pushed around. And he's right. And just from a pure competitiveness standpoint or lack thereof, this felt to me like I thought there was more competitiveness, even as that thing got away from FAU last year at Clemson. I thought there was more competitiveness in that game than in this one against UConn. And the last game I can remember where I felt like, where was the drive and desire was probably in Coach Taggart's last year, that second to last penultimate game of his tenure, going to Middle Tennessee State, kickoff temperature 44 degrees, and players actively looked like they didn't want to hit because their bodies were cold and it was going to be painful for them to do so. And they were checking up on tackles. They were taking weird angles to the ball. They were going down at initial contact on offense. This felt like that. Though weather wasn't a concern this time. Like UConn, credit to them. Credit to those players. Credit to those bodies. Credit to those coaches. UConn really sort of snatched the competitiveness from Florida Atlantic early in this game. Like as soon as it hit 17-0, there was really no path forward in this one. And all right. Defensively, because, yes, UConn did put up an FBS program record in rushing yards in this game. It was 430 yards of rushing yardage gained. Net rushing yardage of 421. That is an FBS record for UConn. They have never, in their entire time in Division I/FBS, had more yards on the ground than what they did against Florida Atlantic. 421 yards. Now, were there a lot of lanes to run? Yes. And I thought UConn did a great job of using their quarterback, Nick Evers, on the edges. And Chris Newbold was pointing it out repeatedly on the broadcast. They're running them to the edges. The blocking was superb. Just clearing out linebackers, clearing out DBs. Evers was able to follow those blocks. He had green grass in front of him. Other than the forced fumble that FAU was able to force, Wendell Ford ripping it out and Eddie Williams scooping it up in the first quarter. Evers was able to really maneuver wherever he wanted to go. But I don't think that was the biggest issue with FAU's defense in defending the run last night. The biggest issue was, and what really stands out, is that it was so uncharacteristic of what we've seen from this defense over the first 3 weeks of the season. It was that FAU just didn't tackle. Did not tackle. Darrell Robinson, I don't know, in my time at FAU, 17 years at FAU, I don't know if I have seen a running back, and I've called games featuring Amir Abdullah on the Nebraska side, torching FAU's defense, okay? I don't recall another running back that has so easily, so smoothly, so slipperily, that's not a word, just maneuvered through tackles the way Darrell Robinson did. He would run into tacklers, and it was like FAU defenders were grasping at ghosts. Like he's at their chest, and then they're somehow not touching him. And suddenly he's cut to the right, or he's bounced off of him, and he's 5-6 yards downfield. Like it's like he had a baby oil all over him. 16 carries, 156 yards for Darrell Robinson. And this is the thing. He averaged 9.8 yards per carry It's not like he broke a 60-yard run. His longest run of the night was 28 yards. Good run. Not game-breaking. 16 carries, 9.8 yards per carry on those 16 carries, and didn't have a carry over 28 yards. Like, that's incredible. That's incredible. What a night. What a talent. Mel Brown, 21 carries, 156 for him, 7.4 yards per carry. You're not winning football games when that's the case. You're not winning football games when two running backs are up over 7 yards per rush and both at 156 total. You're just not. So the defense was objectively poor. It was uncharacteristic. But I don't want to pile on the defense too much, because if not for them, what is this season at this point? If not for the FAU defense, you're losing by multiple scores at Michigan State. If not for the FAU defense, you end up getting shut out against Army. If not for the FAU defense, do you win the Shula Bowl? I don't know. And so 1-3 would feel even worse, I think, if not for how Herculean this defense has played. So I refuse to just, that was awful. I mean, what was that? Right now, the way that this FAU team is playing, the defense is just being held to a different standard. And that standard is you've got to be damn near perfect. And it's not sustainable for any team. It's just not sustainable the way the offense is still trying to find itself. If you want to look at some positives here, FAU, another takeaway. Florida Atlantic is now going to be top 3 in the nation in takeaways, which is awesome. That's a great thing to build off of, especially with 8 games left in the season. You've got 10 takeaways on the year, 3rd in the nation. That's something to hang your hat on. That's profound. That's excellent. Wendell Fullord, outstanding forced fumble. Eddie Williams scoops it up. It's a really impressive achievement so far, a third of the way through the season. So that's good. And fine, FAU's defense did not play well. Let me drink some coffee here. And pardon me, I got a little like nose throat thing that started developing yesterday. Good timing, right? But we'll survive. We persevere and we move forward, just like FAU football. So yeah, FAU did not play well defensively, but I refuse to go on a tangent, a soliloquy on what's wrong with FAU's defense when FAU's defense has been downright sensational. Okay. And I've said it before. I've said it on previous podcasts, and I'll say it again. Right now, the FAU defense is expected to play perfectly to give the other side of the ball a chance to contribute. And it's just not, it's not going to be a long-term answer. Okay. So then there's the offense. And what I best compare this to, it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg right now. What came first, chicken or the egg? Where do the problems start with the offense? Is it the line or is it the quarterback? Is it the line or is it the running backs? Is it the line or is it the wide receivers? And this is where it's not chicken and the egg. It's a combination of all of them, I think. So forget chicken and egg, which came first. This is like all the eggs have just splattered on the pavement, and you're trying to figure out, what do you do next? Again, it's easy to pile on the quarterback. And has Cam Fancher been awesome? I mean, no. He's definitely struggled to find himself within this offense and running this offense. But here's the problem. Look at any of the film. Within seconds, no matter what they try to run, 3-step drop, 5-step drop, play action, roll out to the right, roll out to the left. There's a defender in his face within seconds, almost all the time. Almost all the time. So it makes it extremely difficult to get into a rhythm or pick out receivers if you have a defender on you right away constantly. Does it sound like I'm making excuses for Cam Fancher? Fine. If it sounds like that, guilty. But I don't know. Could he be more accurate? Absolutely. Could he try and hang in the pocket a little bit more? Sure. But how much separation are the receivers getting? And I don't think there's a ton there. I think injuries have started to take their toll. No Alexander, no Horton, no Joseph Young last night. Like that stuff matters. The tight end production has not been there for multiple reasons. Zeke Moore didn't play last night. That didn't help the cause. But again, it's not all on Cam, because I think you have to look at the fact, are the receivers getting any sort of separation? And I don't know. I don't think that there's a ton there. And then the running backs, he had 2 C.J. Campbell touchdown runs last night. That was encouraging. That's one of the few positives. One a 38-yard run. That's good. Because C.J.'s really been struggling. Sub 3 yards per carry on the season coming into last night. That's now not the case any longer. That's great. But FAU consistently still having trouble finding holes to run through. And then you focus on what's up front. And Daughtry Richardson broke his hand, didn't play last night. Alex Atkevich is playing tackle. But I don't think that that's a contributing factor to why FAU struggled with the offensive line, because the offensive line has had issues all season long. So this is what and this is the puzzle that FAU is going to have to try and piece together, is where do you start on offense? What is the priority to try and adjust first to help to at least move this thing down the tracks a little bit? And it's not going to be going to Wagner next Saturday. Snap your finger. Oh, we found a magic elixir. And there it is. There's the answer. Everything's fixed. Now, once we get back into conference play in 2 weeks' time after a bye, we're good. It's not going to happen like that. But there needs to be, I think probably, things don't make a significant leap forward unless some of the issues on the offensive line can start to get patched up. Like when I asked Tom Herman, this is why I love Coach Herman, because I can ask him something as critical as can be, and he's not going to say, "Oh, is Ken against me now? Is Ken not? Does he not buy into what we're doing?" No, he sees the same thing that we see. He's not going to dismiss you or talk down to you. And when I ask him, where do you start with the offensive issues? The fact that the offensive line is allowing a lot of pressure, the fact that the quarterback is having trouble with his accuracy, hovering in the high 50s, the receivers not able to get a ton of separation off of the DBs or the linebackers, the running backs not able to bust off consistent 4, 5, 6 yard carries. His answer to that was, yes, all of that is a problem. That's the reality. It's all part of the problem. And so I wish that I had some profound revelation for you this morning about what the problem with the offense is and how to fix it. But one, that's way above my pay grade. I'm not paid to fix the FAU football offensive problems, nor am I qualified to do so. Okay, there's a reason I talk into a microphone for a living, all right? But it's a collection of things. It's a confluence of issues, and that's what makes this difficult. I mean, you remember, and I'm not comparing this season and what it's going to be to what 2017 ended up being, but Florida Atlantic had very similar offensive issues in 2017, the first year of Lane. They started 1-3. And the combination of Daniel Parr and Jason Driscoll, they couldn't do anything in the passing game. I mean, nothing. It was a mess. And that's why Lane Kiffin just decided we are going to go with tempo, and we are going to try and ram the ball down defenses' throats with the ground game. And then that's where Devin Singletary and Kareth White and then Jason Driscoll became massive running threats. And up through week 8, Jason Driscoll's best attribute as a quarterback was that he was routinely pulling off 6 and 7 yard runs. He single-handedly won the Old Dominion game with a handful of touchdown runs. Barely threw it because he couldn't be trusted to do so. And then finally, the passing game came late in the season, and FAU became this unstoppable juggernaut. They were before that, and then when the passing game came, there was nobody that was going to beat FAU, at least in the group of 5. And the lower edges of the power conferences, in my opinion. So this is sort of where you're at right now. But here's the difference. Is there any chance of establishing a running game that can carry the load for the aerial attack for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks? And I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough situation for Tom Herman and for Charlie Fry. This is what happens when you are, and this was foisted upon FAU. This was not much of a choice. This was foisted upon them when you bring back 9% of your overall yardage production on offense from the previous season. These types of things are going to happen. And I would say more often than not going to happen. It's tough to go through a complete offensive overhaul. And Tom Herman says it repeatedly. On offense, you have 11 guys. 10 guys do the right thing. 1 guy does the wrong thing, and it can blow up the whole play. I think part of the issue here is that you've got 11 guys, but there are 8 or 9 guys doing the right thing. And there are multiple guys not doing the right thing, and then it's stagnant, and there's no way to move the football. So this morning, you can rue and be upset with the 421 UConn rushing yards. And I get it. And it was really tough to watch. The defense just get run over and over again. Missed tackles over and over again. FBS UConn record 421 yards rushing. But Florida Atlantic's issues are largely started because the offense can't move the ball and can't really hang on to the ball much. You do realize, for all of the attention we paid the time of possession against Army, where Florida Atlantic watched Army go up over 24 minutes in the second half, time of possession, Florida Atlantic was sub 7. It was a profound time of possession blasting. In that game, full time of possession, Florida Atlantic, let me make sure I have this number correct. Time of possession, there it is. Hold on. Time of possession. I'm trying to scroll through the stats real quick. Time of possession for Florida Atlantic against Army. It was lopsided. There it is. Army, 38 minutes, 39 seconds to FAU's 21-21. Okay? So 38 plus to 21 plus. Army won time of possession battle in that game, including the second half where it was 24-6 basically. Okay? Guess what happened last night? And now I'm sure you know where I'm going. UConn had the football for 40 minutes and 45 seconds. 40 minutes and 45 seconds to Florida Atlantic's 18:03. Florida Atlantic had the football for just over the equivalent of a quarter last night. UConn beat FAU time of possession greater than Army with the triple option. Beat FAU time of possession. That's the offense not being able to sustain drives. Yes, the defense couldn't get off the field. Had some critical third downs when the game was still a game, where they gave up long gains to allow 4th and short that got converted. 2 for 2 is UConn in that category. Or you have a running back stopped and they just keep churning, and dragging tacklers to the first down marker. Like, that's demoralizing stuff. That happened twice on the same possession in the second quarter, and that's where UConn really put the game away. UConn over 40 minutes time of possession in a game against FAU. I mean, I could not have foreseen that happening. I felt bad asking Tom Herman this in the postgame. But again, this goes back to how much respect I have for him because he gets it. I asked him if he was discouraged, and he actually referenced it in his media-wide postgame that he had talked with us, and me asking him the question, is he discouraged? And his answer was, short-term, yeah, I'm discouraged right now, but long-term, no. Listen, there are a lot of dudes on this FAU roster. C.J. Hurd's the best freshman defensive player in the United States of America. That's good. That's good. But it's just not meshing together offensively. Again, last night was ugly for the defense, yes, but I refuse to put so much on the shoulders of the defense. Because again, they have to play pretty close to perfect right now. And we're a month into the season. And I guess you ask yourself, how much improvement has come on the offensive side? And I think the question off of that is, has there been any improvement on the offensive side? And I don't quite know how to answer that. Because I also don't know from a coaching standpoint, not everything is numbers. Not everything is that tangible numeral, right? So I don't quite know what the offensive coaches are seeing on film and what they gauge, what they judge as progress. To my football eye, I think that you've seen incremental progress from Cam Fancher compared to week 1 against Michigan State. You had the 72-yard touchdown run for Jabari Mobley, the 38-yarder in garbage time for C.J. Campbell against UConn. But I don't know how much the needle moves in terms of improvement on the offensive side of the ball. And there inherently is the biggest problem right now with FAU. So up next is Wagner, and then it's a bye week. And then it's back into conference play for the remainder. UTSA kicks things off there. This is a crossroads. It's got to start happening now, this improvement. It's got to start happening now, or you might find yourself in trouble not making the postseason again. Like this is the crossroads. You're now a third of the way through the season. You're a third of the way through the season. This is the crossroads right here. You got to go handle business against Wagner. And as we saw with FIU losing to Monmouth, I don't think FAU right now can take any opponent for granted or just say, oh, well, it's an FCS team. Mm-mm. You can do so as a fan, but nobody in that building is going to do that. And all you have to do is look south, and FIU is the cautionary tale. Better them than us, right? But there needs to be at least a modicum of improvement on the offensive side of the ball, or how are you going to go to UTSA and win that game? Yes, Frank Harris is not there any longer. It's not the same UTSA team, but we know they're physical. They have an identity. And you don't want to go to UTSA and have to say again, hey, defense, go shoulder this entire load. Maybe we'll hit a big play on offense. You can't survive like that. So it's time to start talking crossroads. You remember, and if you didn't hear it, if you're fairly new to the podcast, this was probably about a month before the season started. We were looking at, just based on the top college football prognostication models, and win expectancy for FAU within their schedule, why things were conducive for FAU to hit bowl eligibility, and why they didn't hit bowl eligibility last year. Last season, FAU, based on the predictive models, they should have They should have got to 6 wins. But there were a couple of games that they lost that doomed them. Games where they went in, the predictive favorite, and then things went sideways, and it's really what held FAU back. It was the loss to East Carolina and the loss at UAB, back-to-back weeks. Those are what sunk FAU. FAU, based on the models, was better than UAB, better than East Carolina, and FAU lost at UAB in the final moments and lost at home with the offense not able to do anything to East Carolina. That's what sunk FAU last year. And we talked about how you win, you take care of business in the games that you are expected to win based on the models, and you're in good shape. And even if you drop one, because the goal this year is just 6 wins, you're trying to build something, set a base. If you're an FAU fan, you're okay with 6 wins, bowl eligibility, playing the postseason, get yourself a 13th game, boom, perfect, excellent. That's okay. I warned you before the season. Don't start saying 7-8 wins, 7-8 wins, 7-8 wins. No, start at 6. Better to meet expectation than put up something lofty that's unrealistic and then you make yourself angry. But so for the first time here in 2024, Florida Atlantic has lost a game based on the predictive models. And that's UConn. And the troubling thing is that it wasn't close. That UConn had its way, dominated, threw its weight around, smacked around FAU. So now your margin for error for this 2024 season has just closed a little bit instead of expanding. The goal is still 6 wins. It's still very much attainable. You have 8 to get 5. You have 8 to get 5. You have Wagner, great opportunity next Saturday to get your second. And then it turns into 7 to get 4. Okay? At UTSA. Well, you want to win in San Antonio, the offense needs to show some life. Home against South Florida. The offense, you need to be capable of getting into a shootout. This is coming right off the bye week. October 12th, October 19th. North Texas. Sorry, skip North Texas. Home game against North Texas. They can sling the ball around the yard a little bit. North Texas, UTSA, South Florida. Those 3 right there. You need the offense to show up. It just has to happen. It has to happen. So that's why I think this team's at a crossroads. You got to find a way to get right against Wagner, really use the bye week to your benefit, and then the offense needs to come back ready to show face. Okay? That's the that's sort of the mission for FAU right now. That's the prerogative for FAU right now. Got to find some offense. And the defense needs to let whatever happened at UConn go. Leave the lack of tackling up there. Leave the penalties up there. This is another thing we didn't bring up. Florida Atlantic had 9 penalties in the first half against UConn. 9 penalties. You know how many passing yards FAU's offense had in the first half? 10. FAU had 1 less penalty than passing yards in the first half against UConn. It's very easy to see why last night was extremely lopsided and was a blowout loss when you have numbers like that. Okay. And I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know from how lopsided it was, but I'm giving even more context for you. It's rough. It's really, really rough to watch your team go out like that. But if you think it's rough, just imagine that building. I'll give you just a little insight. I mean, I can't tell you how many countless really difficult travel nights there's been, long flights after tough losses, because you lose, you get on the bus, you eat some food out of a box, you go to the airport, you go through the hangar, get your ID checked, and then you get on the plane, and you're crowded in on that plane, and it is quiet. The coaches, long-faced, grim, all looking at tablets already, breaking down film from the game. I imagine you're able to distance yourself from that FAU game at its conclusion. These coaches need to relive it because they're watching film right away, because Sunday, today, when this is being recorded, like, they're going through all that. It's teaching time. And boys, there are a lot of teaching from that UConn game. But man, quiet, despondent. It was rough, as you can imagine, because there is a lot of buy-in with this team. And I think there's just obviously frustration that, other than FIU, it hasn't translated to what they wanted to translate to. And last night was sort of a not just slap in the face. It was a right hook, a haymaker to the jaw. And you were out in the second quarter. And then woozy the rest of the way. Just got bowled over. You didn't get knocked out, but that was a majority decision after you hit the mat early. Didn't have your legs the rest of the way. All right, I've extended the boxing analogy about as long as I can. So, yeah, this is a crossroads. This is absolutely a crossroads. We're a third of the way in. This is crossroads time. FAU has come back from 1-3 before. It's unfortunate that FAU can't get over this consistent 1-3 start to the year. It seems to always find itself in. But that's the reality now. So now you dig out. Does the team have the fortitude to do it? We'll see. But it's going to start with the offense getting better. It's going to start with the offense believing it can move the ball, executing, especially up front, and finding a way. Because I don't know how much more you can ask of the defense before you put so much weight on them that things start to crack. And they definitely showed some vulnerability against UConn. All right. I do want to do this. I do want to, let's go ahead and because I don't want this to just be 40 minutes of, well, that was terrible. Well, that was awful, man. That was, oh boy. Oh, gag me. Oh man. Let's do 3 positives from last night, just for our mental stability. Okay. 3 positives from FAU's 48-14 loss at UConn. Positive 1, another takeaway for the defense. They're going to be third in the nation in takeaways going into next week. That's good. Okay. Positive 2, CJ Campbell maybe got going a little bit. Oh, but Ken, the game was over by that point. That's fine. For CJ Campbell to fight through tacklers to get into the end zone for his first touchdown and then his second touchdown to break a long run, you don't know what that's going to do to him mentally. The feeling of getting into the end zone, of running in space, of hitting the hole and it paying off. That could lift him. That could legitimately lift number 5. And that's absolutely a good thing, right? And then positive number 3, you came out of last night fairly healthy. So compared to the FIU game where you got dinged a little bit, Day Hill and Daughtry Richardson and Zeke Moore, you came out of last night, even if you got blasted, you came out fairly healthy. There's your 3 positives. It was not that difficult to do, okay? The season is not over. The season is assuredly, unequivocally not over, but it is at that crossroads. There's a fork in the road. Going to find a way to get the offense to provide something for you. You're back on your path, paved path to 6 wins. If that offense can't make any sort of progress, you're on that gravelly, rocky path. It's going to feel pretty uncomfortable the rest of the way. And maybe you get to 6, but it's going to take a toll on you. Okay? So FAU is on that crossroads. Another thing that is really going to help the offense's cause is finding a way to do anything on third down. Florida Atlantic on third down. So we talked about offensive line. It probably, a lot of this starts up front. It's got to be better. You know, quarterback, issue. Running backs, yeah, issue. Wide receivers, sure, issue. But what really would help is if Florida Atlantic could get itself going on third down. Florida Atlantic was 1 of 8 last night on third down. Me telling you that is not the point of what I'm about to bring up to you. Because on the season, Florida Atlantic is 10 of 48 on third down. 48 third downs, they've converted 10 of them. That is, and I haven't checked the updated numbers yet, but that is in all likelihood the worst mark in all of college football. It's, oh boy. You convert 10 more of those, and you probably win Michigan State. You convert 10 more of those, and there's a chance that you give Army a real big scare in the fourth quarter. Sorry, 10 of 49. Florida Atlantic is 10 of 49, 20% conversion on third down. I don't think I've ever seen that before. You go 20 of 49, and you might be at 500 or above 500, depending on how things go. But 10 of 49, it's just not winning football. The UConn holding the ball over 40 minutes in a four-quarter football game, a 60-minute football game, that's not winning football. 9 penalties and a half, it's not winning football. So a lot of the issues are right there out front for you to see. How do you attack them? That's what Tom Herman needs to figure out. So next week, it's Wagner. It's 6 o'clock, and it is an opportunity to get things back on track, to go into the bye at 2-3, which is certainly not the worst thing in the world at all. But a lot of what the rest of the year is going to be is the offense finally showing some sort of, other than blips, some sort of consistent, sustained improvement. Thanks for listening. I know that things aren't real fun right now. It's never fun to lose the way FAU lost, but I think this is a good chance for us to unpack it. Maybe it's a little bit therapeutic for some of you, and I appreciate you listening. Florida Atlantic Voice, presented by Robes Law Group, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com, presenting partner of the Florida Atlantic Voice in the community for you. Office Delray Beach, Robes Law Group, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com. Subscribe to the Florida Atlantic Voice wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back during the week, and of course, a Wagner day after as well next weekend. Hang in there. Big week for FAU on the way. They got to get better. I'm Ken Levicka. This has been the Florida Atlantic Voice Day After edition. Bye-bye.